Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Animel. I am your host Mel. This week, and I guess weekend now, we are fast approaching on Valentine's Day. So I'm a little overdressed for the occasion, but you know, date night is coming with your significant other, or perhaps you met someone new on Hinge or Tinder that you're going to meet this potential weekend. And I think that makes it a great opportunity to suggest some animes to you all that would be great to watch this weekend. Some that are pretty easy to binge. If not, I think all of them are easy to binge. And for the first time ever, I'm including movies in my list. I don't really cover movies. I feel like I should start covering movies more for the individuals out there that can't sit down long enough to watch a show but would prefer to watch a movie instead. Aside from that, I'll go over 5 different movies and shows today that would be great to watch over Valentine's Day weekend. And for those of you who don't watch not watch Valentine's Day, but for those of you who don't enjoy Valentine's Day at all and just think it's a commercial holiday, because I personally do, it's just a means of quote-unquote celebrating love because our capitalistic system. So aside from that point, and for the people who enjoy it, please continue to watch. I've got some amazing shows and movies to suggest. And again, for those who don't enjoy Valentine's Day, I definitely have one on this list that might pique your interest. So watch this all the way through so that you can see what to watch this weekend. First on the list is a show that was released about a year or two ago and recently won Best Romance on the Crunchyroll Awards. This show is called Horimiya. Horimiya is a show about essentially our main characters Hori and Miyamura, and that's essentially what makes the title Horimiya, but the long extended title is actually Hori-san to Miyamura-san. Which essentially is, Hori and Miyamura when you translate it into English. So the idea of the show is to kind of walk you through the development of their relationship. Kind of starts off as characters who have like one type of identity and persona that they show while they're at school. Meanwhile, after school and after hours, when they're in their casual lives, they've got completely different looks and sides to their personality that they don't really show to their friends at school. And Hori and Miyamura happen to bump into each other one day, and this kind of sparks some really intriguing reactions from each other. They didn't expect the other to look or act the way that they did while they were outside of school. And from there flourishes a very beautiful friendship, which ends up growing into a relationship. Aside from both of their relationships, why I love this show so much, aside from the fact that both of their personalities are just so contrasting, and just some of the interactions and wholesome moments that they have between each other is very tearjerker type of sensation, and just like, heart flutters. There are also other people within the show, like their friends, and we get to watch also how other relationships grow and flourish. And it's not just about romance, but also friendships. Miyamura, tending to be a loner, as depicted in the very beginning of the show, grows to have new friends, builds new friendships with people he never thought he could be friends with. And the overall show is just 1 season long. I don't think this is getting a second season. But it's just so wholesome in the fact that it's not just about romance. And while we love romance, I think that love in general can grow beyond the romantic sense, and I think that the friendship component is what makes this all really alluring and why I'm recommending it. So if you haven't seen Horimiya yet, I highly suggest you check it out. There is a wide spectrum of different types of romance, anime, shows, and movies out there in the universe. However, most of these shows tend to represent a hetero relationship. And I think it's really important that there are more relationships out there aside from that. So the next one on my list is called Given. Given is about a relationship between two high school males who end up starting off as friends, kind of one helping the other learn how to play guitar as they've recently acquired a strong interest in music. And they start to build just like a great friendship, which I feel like a lot of shows don't really do well. It always starts off as, person meets other person, like sparks suddenly start to fly, and we all know that's not realistic. Usually there's some pre-existing relationship that's there, and a friendship that starts everything. And then with knowing each other and building that friendship, sometimes it's when I would say romantic feelings start to grow and start to spark. So aside from that aspect of it being such a wonderful component of the show, Given is also really mature in addressing just like coming out as either gay or lesbian or bisexual or any of the basically anything else within the LGBTQ plus spectrum. I think that they do a really good job of just addressing the fact that it's kind of something that's thought of, I wouldn't say thought of, but something that's kind of like taboo in Japan. So there's a moment within the show where the character realizes he has feelings now for his friend, but he senses like there's something wrong with him, and one of his bandmate members ends up just having a talk with him like, look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you, like I'm into men as well. Just because you're a guy doesn't mean you need to like women, like your interests in sexuality should be fluid. And I think that in itself just makes the show so much more mature than any romance show, even like LGBTQ plus represented romance shows. I think that's what makes the show so great and mature and profound and deep. There's a lot of ands there, but getting to my point, this show has a lot of depth to it. So if you want to look for something that will kind of make you cry and make you feel moved this weekend, this is a good one. Additionally, it's very deep. There are some messagings around suicide, so I'm giving you a big warning here before you watch that if you're sensitive to that kind of content. But overall, the messaging is very beautiful. The growth of the relationship is very organic and deep and mature, versus I feel like some other shows or movies that are out there, it may seem like very superficial at times or not as deep or like surface level. And I think that you'll get some extreme depth watching this show. Great. So next on the list is actually a movie. Well, the next two will probably be movies, and this will be kind of a combined conversation here because they're kind of loosely attached. This movie is super well known to the point that I think non-anime viewers would thoroughly enjoy this. So if you're in a relationship where you're potentially an anime viewer and your significant other isn't, I'm going to say like this movie is probably enjoyed by all. It's won tons of awards, and without further ado, the name of the movie is Your Name. So Your Name is an extremely popular movie that came out, I want to say like in 2016 or something of that nature, around that year. If I'm wrong, I'll probably correct it in the bottom section when I'm editing this. But Your Name is essentially a movie where two high schoolers living in completely separate regions of Japan end up swapping bodies. This all comes to fruition when a young girl living in a rural area of Japan ends up making a wish, saying that she wishes that she could be a Tokyo boy in her next life. Well, I guess the next life didn't have to come because she goes to sleep one night and wakes up in another guy's body. Meanwhile, her spirit or mind is in his body. He is in her body. It's kind of confusing at first, and they both believe that they are dreaming until they come to realize that they're not dreaming and they're actually swapping bodies. It's a great movie that starts off as, you know, who is this stranger's body that I'm in, turns into them communicating with each other by writing messages on each other's arms so that when they swap bodies again and they return to their original bodies, they're able to see the messaging, or leaving post-its, or writing notes on the phone, or like messaging. It's really interesting, and you kind of don't get what's going on most of the time, but the movie and the relationship, it's like so beautiful that it's I would say it feels like a relationship that can transcend time and space almost. It is so beautiful. I could say beautiful a million times about this movie, but I have to say that it didn't win all these awards for a reason. It's really funny, it's really witty, it's really cute. There are just these moments in which their bodies are swapped where they're trying to figure out each other's lives. They end up improving each other's lives in different ways while they're in each other's bodies. And at some point, they start to develop romantic feelings for each other. At some point in the movie, they try to meet, but as you will watch this movie, I shouldn't spoil the plot for you, but when they try to come to meet, some interesting things start to happen and some interesting things start to reveal themselves. For everyone who is watching this and may have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm referring to. Don't spoil it in the comments or anything. But for anyone who hasn't seen it, if you're gonna watch anything on this list, this is the first thing that you should watch. And the movie that I'm going to recommend after this, Weathering with You, from the very same director, has some loose connections to Your Name due to some cameo appearances of characters from Your Name. So if you're going to watch Your Name, watch Weathering with You, but do not watch Weathering with You first, because then you will totally miss the cameo and you will be confused afterwards. But again, if you haven't seen Your Name, like if anything, that's the first thing you should watch off this list. It's a movie, so you can watch it in one night on one weekend. It's a little bit easier than watching a show, and I guarantee that your non-anime watching partner will love it. So, Weathering with You, done by the same director as Your Name, has a completely different plot. Our plot starts out with our hero who has run away from home. Young teenage boy who is trying to go to Tokyo, I guess to make something of himself, or he's tired of his life back at home. Ends up nearly losing his life due to a phenomenon of inexplicable rain that's just constantly falling on Tokyo. Just like the whole area of Tokyo is just like rain 24/7. And I'm not talking about like drizzle, I'm talking about extreme downpour where you've got probably puddles and small patches of flooding everywhere. While in Tokyo, after stumbling into some trouble, he bumps into our heroine at some point who, as we continue to watch, find out that she can control the weather. These two end up building a bond and a friendship, but he's kind of more so in love with her to the point that these abilities of hers ends up kind of creating some trouble, to the point that our main hero will go to major extremes to keep her safe and to keep her from disappearing. It's really wholesome, has very similar type of feelings as Your Name, and as I mentioned earlier, there's a bit of a Your Name cameo in it. So if you don't watch it for the storyline, watch it for the cameo, especially if you loved Your Name. We've gone over a lot of cute movies and shows that is full of very cute love, very mature love, very profound love, all sorts of romance, and then we've also gone over some shows that have both romance and friendship love. Now, again, I know we all don't celebrate Valentine's Day, and while this next show is still technically a romance, it is almost anything but a romance, if that makes sense. So our main character, Chiyo Sakura, is trying to confess her love to this guy at school, Nozaki. And while she's trying to confess her love, she is, very shy. She doesn't know what to say. So her first words are kind of like, I'm a big fan of yours and I want to be by your side forever. you'd think that he would obviously either react to it by accepting her profession of love or confession of love, or reject her based on how he feels, but instead his reaction is to give her an autograph. And you may be really confused about that, and after giving her the autograph, he's basically like, hey, do you want to cover my place? Again, the sequencing of events is very weird, where she gets an autograph, he asks her to come over, and in going to his place, he starts to give her like these pieces of paper and asks her to color them in. They have drawings on him and depictions and areas where he wants her to color them in, and like 4 hours pass essentially. She kind of like discovers that he's a manga artist. And what's funny is that he's a manga artist for like a shoujo manga, essentially a romance manga targeted towards women or younger women or girls, however you want to put it. So what makes this show a romance and not a romance at the same time is that Sakura is basically in love with Nozaki. Nozaki writes a romance manga, but he is completely oblivious to the feelings that she feels for him, and his perception of love is very skewed, and he even goes on to declare himself that he himself has never expressed or felt love for anyone before. The show goes on to discuss many different types of romance tropes that you see within movies. You've got that really flashy, like cringy line kind of guy who says those really embarrassing, like, you know, lines that he's like hitting on people, but you know the line is so cringy that it's just like, who really falls for them? And in most romance animes, some people do, but because the show is basically the antithesis to romance in a romance show, this guy who embodies this character is embarrassed by his own words. So like there's aspects like that, like you've got beach episodes that go completely awry because usually on beach episodes, like there's some cute confession, but instead none of that happens. And Nozaki, the guy that Sakura likes, is just like very oblivious to it all, and he kind of tries to study different cases of love and romance, but is never able to like get a good case study because all of the characters within the show are just so anti-tropey. And if you don't know what a trope is, I think that's a discussion for another time. So I would say that Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun is definitely an anime for everyone. It is a romance anime, but not a romance anime at the same time. So if you're looking for something along those themes that's gonna make you laugh this weekend, I would watch Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun. Also, I think it's quite comedic to watch an anime about mangas. Yeah. Now, whether you enjoy Valentine's Day or not, all of these shows and movies on this list are extremely great, entertaining shows and movies, regardless, I guess, of the weekend or the situation. It's not like you have to watch this during Valentine's Day weekend, but in the spirit of Valentine's Day, or rather, the spirit of Valentine's Day weekend, this is a great list to start with, especially if you're looking to introduce a friend or a loved one or significant other to anime. These are all really easy to get into shows and movies, but again, aside from that, you could just enjoy your weekend like any regular weekend, because that's probably what I'm going to do. So with that being said, I'm just going to wrap this up. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate your viewership as always, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye!